Good afternoon and welcome to Sydney International Airport. I've just arrived back into Australia on an international flight with Virgin Australia from Queenstown, New Zealand, but that's not the end of our travels today as I'm continuing onwards to Perth in Western Australia, whereby we'll be flying a Virgin Australia Boeing 737-800 in economy class. As I'm transferring from an international to a domestic flight here at Sydney Airport today, there's a little bit of procedure to go through as I'm arriving internationally. Even though I'm technically checked in all the way from Queenstown to Perth, I do have to pick up my bag at the carousel and then obviously proceed to clear through immigration and customs. It's a very quiet afternoon here at Sydney Airport, so that was all very efficient and I was all through back into Australia in only around 15 minutes or so that was really good. To this point, the international transfer experience here at Sydney Airport from international to domestic seemed to be going pretty seamlessly. Unfortunately, Virgin Australia let down the experience a little bit as I was expecting and informed that their international transfer desk would be open, whereby you can recheck in your luggage at the international terminal before heading yourself over to the domestic. That was unfortunately closed, otherwise left unattended, and it directed us to proceed directly to Terminal 2 with our luggage to recheck in there. This wasn't the end of the world as I still knew I had to make my own way across the Terminal 2 as Virgin Australia don't offer their own dedicated airside transfer service like Qantas do here at Sydney Airport. So yeah, this meant I had to transfer across today. I just took the T-bus, it takes about 10 minutes. It's a reasonably comfortable journey, although it's not the quickest as you do have to take public roads to get there. Alternatively, you can take the Sydney train, but they do charge a rather steep $8.60 just to travel between the two terminals, so I think unless you're really in a rush, it's better to save your money and get the T-bus. But yeah, once I got to Terminal 2, they were a bit confused when I presented to check in my bag again. They seemed to think I would be doing it at the international terminal, so they didn't really realise that the international terminal transfer desk was closed. I can't remember, to be honest, whether my bag tag was tagged all the way through to Perth, but I did try to go to a kiosk anyway to recheck in, but yeah, unsurprisingly this didn't work as I think I was already checked in the whole way through. So yeah, I just then proceeded to a counter to drop off my bag where the confusion began. Now that I'm at the Virgin Australia check-in area, which is up the escalators in the departures area of the terminal, may as well just show you how you would check in for a flight with Virgin Australia out of Sydney Airport anyway. So yeah, they do have the self-service check-in kiosk. Bring up your booking, you just need a form of ID or your velocity card or your booking reference, something like that will bring it up. And then yeah, you just select how many bags you're dropping, and then yeah, you can print off your boarding pass, your bag tags, all that sort of stuff. I think at this point I was somewhat successful in the check-in process, but I don't think it worked in the end because I think I was already checked in. Anyway, that's when I just went straight to the counter to check in my bag. So yeah, it wasn't too bad in the end. After a few minutes of confusion when they weren't really expecting me, it all worked out in the end and they managed to accept my bag for the flight over to Sydney. But yeah, I just think the lesson of the story is I think Virgin just needed to communicate a little bit better with their ground staff that the international transfer desk wasn't open. Even better, if they promise the international transfer desk is going to be open, they should deliver on that commitment, and if that does fall through, they should at least have some sort of dedicated lane for international transfers at the domestic terminal, because it just created a bit of confusion for me, the check-in agents at the domestic side of the airport, and also other fellow passengers who had also connecting flights from Queenstown. 10-15 minutes later, I've now cleared security. Can't help but notice Terminal 2 here at Sydney Airport is very busy. Much busier indeed than the international terminal that I've just arrived at. So yeah, I've just got just over an hour to my flight over to Perth this evening now. So that was just enough time to have a quick feed at a participating Priority Pass restaurant. And yeah, now I'm spending a quick half an hour or so in the Regional Express Lounge, which I can get in with my lounge key card. Really appreciate this nice quiet little lounge here at Sydney Airport. Certainly not as big as the Qantas Club or the Virgin Australia Lounge. Certainly not as extensive with its amenities and food and beverage either. But yeah, I find it's a really pleasant little place to just relax for a little bit before your flight. So yeah, thanks very much for the Rex Lounge for hosting me today, even though I'm not flying them. Anyway, it's now only about 5 to 10 minutes before boarding commences, so yeah, we better make our way from the Regional Express Lounge over to Gate 38, where we'll be departing from tonight. So yeah, Sydney Airport is a very busy and quite a large Terminal 2 here, so allow plenty of time to get to your gates. In the meantime, while we head to the gate for this evening's flight, just a little bit of route info on tonight's flight. So tonight's flight is going to take us across the Australian continent, coast to coast, and across the Great Australian Bight. Should take around 5 hours with a great circle distance of 3,284 kilometres. That being said, with favourable wind conditions, the flight time on this route can often be shorter, with the average flight time coming in around 4 hours and 42 minutes. Now that we've got just a few moments until we get to our Gate 38 for our flight to Perth tonight, now would be a really good time, if you're new to my channel or you haven't already, if you do enjoy my flight reviews, aviation content, plane spotting, travel content such as walking tours, hiking tours, driving tours, any of that sort of stuff, whatever you enjoy on the channel. If you do enjoy it, please don't forget to give this video a like and also subscribe to the channel and hit that bell button so you won't miss another one. But now, as we're about to arrive at Gate 38, let's have a look at our aircraft information for our flight to Perth tonight. Unfortunately, Gate 38 here doesn't provide a direct view of the aircraft we're flying tonight, but we very much are flying a Virgin Australia Boeing 737-800 aircraft, which are the stalwart aircraft of the Virgin Australia domestic and short-haul international fleet. As you can see, our Boeing 737-800 here, we're not flying on this exact aircraft, we're flying on Victor Hotel Yankee Foxtrot Lima, first delivered to Virgin Australia straight off the production line in Seattle in May 2012, putting this aircraft at around 11 years of age at the time we're taking this flight tonight. After a short delay, it's now time to board our flight over to Perth tonight. We'll be boarding via the rear stairs of the aircraft, so a short walk out onto the tarmac tonight. Really do like the way that Virgin Australia and often Jetstar board their flights here from Sydney, utilising the rear stairs for the passengers located towards the back of the plane. Just really speeds up the process. I definitely quite like it. Anyway, better late than never, we do finally now out on the tarmac get a few brief glimpses of our aircraft Victor Hotel Yankee Foxtrot Lima, taking us over to Perth tonight. Very sleek, stock standard looking Virgin 737-800 indeed. So welcome aboard our Virgin Australia aircraft taking us to Perth tonight. As you can see, I'm in a regular economy class seat. Towards the back of the plane, it's window seat, pitch is only around 30 inch, so it's probably going to be a little bit cramped and probably not the most comfortable of flights for a 5-hour flight to Perth tonight, but I'm not really complaining since I got this a rewards redemption all the way from Queenstown to Perth for 21,000 points plus tax. It's really hard to complain. Overall, you'll find Virgin Australia's Boeing 737-800 aircraft have a total of 176 seats. Most of them are in economy in a free layout, though there's a small two-row business class cabin at the pointy end of the plane. If you are looking for a bit of a compromise, perhaps between business class and regular economy class, Virgin Australia do offer their Economy X product, which is located immediately behind the business cabin in rows 3 to 5, and also again in the exit rows of 13 and 14. Virgin Australia claim these seats come with up to extra 40% legroom, and when booking Economy X seat, you also get priority overhead luggage compartment space, and you also get priority check-in. Interestingly enough, on the flight over from Queenstown to Sydney earlier today, I was given a complimentary upgrade to an exit row seat, which is essentially an Economy X seat. So yeah, I got to try out the seat for the first time. Certainly provided ample extra legroom. It was a pretty comfortable seat overall. Very pleased I got a complimentary upgrade, but yeah, obviously I couldn't fully assess the whole Economy X product because I didn't get the other included perks, as it was simply just a free upgrade. The price for this Economy X seating definitely varies between the duration of each flight, but for Sydney to Perth, which is one of the longest flights on the network, it will set you back $74, but yeah, I can certainly see why it might be considered a good compromise for those who don't quite need the full business class experience, but definitely want a few extra perks and obviously added legroom. So yeah, $74, it may very well be worth considering, especially for such a long flight such as this one. So without further ado, let's taxi out to the runway and take off out of Sydney Kingsford Smith International Airport this evening. Then once in the air, I'll offer my thoughts and opinion about the Virgin Australia in-flight economy class experience. But yeah, for now, what better time just to sit back, relax and enjoy a stunning takeoff at night time out of Sydney International Airport.
So we appreciate
Now that we're airborne and firmly on our way to Perth, let's have a look at the in-flight food and beverage options for tonight's Virgin Australia service. So unfortunately, post-pandemic, complimentary food and drinks has largely been scrapped for all Virgin Australia Economy and Economy X class passengers. Free tea, coffee and water is still, however, provided, so not all is lost. However, it's nowhere near the experience Virgin Australia used to be pre-COVID, where on the coast-to-coast flights between Perth and East Coast and vice versa, you used to get a bit of a upgraded to your usual Virgin experience. They even operated wide bodies on the coast-to-coast routes. You even got a hot meal and you got complimentary alcoholic beverages. So quite different now. So you do have to buy from a buy on board menu. Has a range of soft drinks, alcoholic beverages and semi-substantial snacks. Prices are pretty typical to other Australian airlines with a buy on board menu. This particular flight I refrained from purchasing anything on board, as I had a few snacks at the Rex Lounge and also a meal at a participating Priority Pass restaurant before the flight, so I didn't really see the need and just saved myself a bit of money. But yeah, in terms of entertainment, they don't have seatback IFE or free publicly accessible Wi-Fi on flights for economy class passengers. However, they do have the pretty solid stream to your own device entertainment system. It has a reasonably extensive, although not excessive, a range of TV shows and movies. You also got the in-flight moving map as well, which is really good. So yeah, unlike my inbound flight from Queenstown, I did very much utilise the stream to your own device system on this flight. I watched a 4-part Richard Branson documentary series covering the larger than life personality and all the publicity stunts behind the Virgin Group's founder. So yeah, I found that really an excellent series. Really matched the 5-hour length for the flight really well. So yeah, it's a pretty solid stream to your own entertainment system on Virgin Australia. So aside from tonight's in-flight food and beverage service, which has very much been scaled back post-COVID to the buy on board menu, and also the reasonably decent stream to your own device entertainment system, there's not a huge amount more to report about tonight's flight. It's going pretty quickly. It's probably not the most comfortable flight. The seat pitch is pretty narrow out the back in economy class, but yeah, I survived. It's fine. Certainly for the price I paid, 22,000 something points plus tax, all the way from Queenstown to Perth. It was a real good bargain and a great redemption in my opinion. I do think, however, I would like to see Virgin Australia being a little bit more innovative with their product post-COVID. I think they're just in a kind of a tricky spot between, not quite being a budget carrier like Jetstar, but they're certainly not a full service carrier these days like Qantas. So yeah, with the new arrivals of Bonza and obviously Rex doing quite well with their jet services now domestically in Australia, I just think Virgin, whatever it is, they just need to do something to differentiate themselves a little bit more as that middle ground carrier in the Australian market. As I alluded to on the Queenstown to Sydney review, it's just my opinion, but maybe if Virgin Australia had a more bundled or unbundled approach to their flights, similar to the way Air New Zealand do it on their short-haul trans-Tasman flights, where you can get different bundles with different levels of inclusion. So basically you could get a Jetstar experience if you just want the bare bones experience at a very good price, or you can pay more to get a fully inclusive experience, like if you're flying on Qantas. Because to be honest, even Jetstar have a bundled approach now to their flights, where you can even buy the Max bundle, where you basically get a whole lot of inclusions such as complimentary luggage allowance, complimentary seat selection, which includes the exit row seats. You get Qantas points, you even get an in-flight meal deal or a credit voucher for food and beverage on board, and you even get added boarding flexibility as well. So yeah, I just see some of Virgin Australia's competitors offering a little bit more flexibility in terms of what you do and don't get with your flights. So yeah, really just hope to see Virgin Australia perhaps adopt this approach as well. So yeah, just things like that I reckon would just help Virgin establish itself as a really good middle ground carrier which caters to a wide base of travellers. Other things like, hopefully they'll bring out their Boeing 737 MAX 8s on the route as well soon. That would just provide a bit more of a modern experience as well. Anyway, we're absolutely raced across the Australian continent tonight, and a little over 4 hours since leaving Sydney. We're now ready to start our descent into Perth this evening. So yeah, once on the ground, I'll offer my final thoughts and AussieJetSetter Score Index for this flight. But in the meantime, what better time now to just sit back, relax, enjoy a lovely evening, nighttime landing under the lights of Perth. So good evening and welcome to Perth Airport. It's about 9:20 p.m. local time. Despite the slightly late departure out of Sydney, we have made up good time in flight. We arrive at the gate at Terminal 1 Domestic Wing, which is the exclusive home of Virgin Australia here in Perth, around 10 minutes ahead of schedule. So overall, I thought it was a pretty reasonable and pleasant flight with Virgin Australia tonight. It's a pretty uneventful flight. Nothing huge to report about back in economy class. I did get a Velocity reward redemption all the way from Queenstown to Perth for around 22,000 points plus tax, which I thought was a really bargain redemption considering the Sydney to Perth component alone was 18,000 points. So for basically an extra 4,000 points, I got either the Queenstown to Sydney leg or the Sydney to Perth leg. Either way you look at it, really good redemption. Before I get to my final AussieJetSetter AJ Score Index for tonight's flight, I'd just like to reiterate again, I would like to really see Virgin Australia in 2023 do a little bit more to differentiate themselves between sort of the budget experience of Jetstar and the full service carrier experience of Qantas. Just really would like to see Virgin do saying they always used to have a bit of an X factor, saying that made Virgin unique. always used to have that sort of uniqueness to the airline pre-COVID. Just like to see Virgin Australia do something to bring it back a little bit more, help differentiate itself from the other carriers in the Australian market. So whether that's with more of a bundled or unbundled approach to flights, or bringing the maxes to the route, or wherever it might be, I think there's plenty of ways for Virgin Australia to fine-tune what is otherwise a pretty solid carrier in Australia. But anyway, now let's get to the AussieJetSetter Score Index for this flight. So let's start with ground handling. Probably a little bit difficult to give a fully precise verdict for tonight's flight, as our Virgin Australia experience for all intents and purposes started in Queenstown today and very much carried through over to this flight. Overall, I give the airline a 12 out of 20. Certainly got to and from Queenstown all the way to Perth on time, which is really good. And there was no issues in terms of baggage arriving on time. The only little bit of downside for Virgin Australia was the transfer experience in Sydney. Not a huge deal breaker, but it was a little bit disappointing that they communicated that the transfer desk at Sydney International Terminal would be open when it wasn't. So that just created a little bit of confusion when it came to rechecking my bag at Sydney Domestic Terminal. So yeah, that's why Virgin get a few points less in ground handling. In terms of crew and in-flight service, despite the scaled back experience in 2023 post-COVID Virgin Australia, still give it a solid 15 out of 20. Very much new in advance. It wouldn't be a huge amount in terms of complimentary food and drink. But yeah, my expectations for the flight were very well met. The crew were really friendly on this flight and very professional, even though it was actually quite a busy flight. So they handled things very well. And yeah, you still get complimentary tea, coffee and water, so not all is lost. And they also were very efficient in doing the paid in-flight meal service from the buy on board menu. So no real complaints there. 15 out of 20. In terms of entertainment, I give Virgin Australia a solid 14 out of 20. For an airline that very much is in the middle ground between a budget carrier and a full service carrier, I think the stream to your own device entertainment option very much fits this type of airline business model. And yeah, the system itself has a pretty decent, not a huge range of TV shows and movies, but it's a decent range nonetheless. And it works really flawlessly to your own device. There isn't any publicly free Wi-Fi for economy class passengers like they used to on Virgin Australia, but yeah, you can actually pay for it on select flights such as this one if you really want it, so it is there. So yeah, I think pretty solid the entertainment on Virgin Australia. I give them a solid 14 out of 20. In terms of seating and aircraft quality, I give Virgin Australia a respectable 13 out of 20. The seat itself in economy class is a fairly standard 30-inch seat pitch. So yeah, not the best legroom, nothing to rave home about, but it's a black leather seat. Itself is pretty comfortable, and to be honest, I definitely prefer the Virgin Australian seating compared to Jetstar's A320 or also Virgin Australia's A320s, which quite frequently operate out of Perth. 737-800 aircraft itself, despite being 11 years old, was pretty clean, pretty modern looking, has good mood lighting and that sort of stuff. So definitely quite like the aircraft. Just pity they don't operate the wide body A330s anymore between Perth and the East Coast, or indeed anywhere in the Virgin Australia fleet. But never mind. In terms of value for money for this flight, it really depends on which way you look at it. Purely from my perspective, with this flight as a rewards redemption all the way from Queenstown to Perth, I thought it was absolutely excellent value, great use of my points. If you're paying cash for the route, however, It's not overly that cheap to fly Virgin Australia between Sydney and Perth in 2023, and arguably what you get is a lot less for your money than what you used to pre-COVID. So considering you could fly Jetstar and get a max bundle with all the extra inclusions, I'm not overly sure Virgin is the most competitive of airline these days. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed score. I'd probably give them 14 out of 20. This score, however, would be a lot higher again if I was purely considering the points I paid, but it'd probably be lower if I was just paying cash. So in total, tonight's flight gets a total score of 68 out of 100 in the AussieJetSetter Score Index for tonight's flight. Overall, a pretty pleasant, although very much uneventful flight over to Perth tonight. Very much what I was expecting my Virgin Australia experience to be, although yeah, definitely still a few areas for Virgin to improve on. As we exit a very busy Terminal 1 precinct here at Perth Airport this evening, thank you very much for watching today's flight review as we're taking Virgin Australia across the country from Sydney to Perth. Really hope you've enjoyed the review and found some interesting information from it. If you have enjoyed this flight review, really appreciate it. Give it a like, hit that subscribe and bell button so you won't miss the next one. Plenty of flight reviews, aviation and travel content on my channel. So yeah, if you haven't really explored my channel yet, please be sure to do so because you'll find plenty of other great content like this. In the meantime, you can also visit my website AussieJetSetter.com.au for lots of written flight reviews and other travel and aviation industry news and that sort of stuff. Also find me in my socials. I'll put links in the description below. But until next time, thank you very much for watching tonight's flight review and safe travels wherever that might take you.